She helps a strange man and his son in a snowstorm, not knowing that he is a very rich CEO. Hello, everyone. Before we start today's story, I have a small request. Please subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a new video on our channel. Your support means a lot to us. Where are you watching from? Leave your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get back to the story. The power had gone out hours ago, leaving Mira Dawson's small cabin swallowed in darkness except for the faint flicker of the fireplace. Outside, the snowstorm raged like a wild animal, slamming into the windows of her remote mountain home on Cedar Ridge. Wrapped in her worn coat, Mira listened to the storm's furious roar, trying to steady her breath. Then, 3 sharp knocks. She flinched, gripping the iron poker beside the fire. No one should be out here. No one should be knocking on her door in the middle of a whiteout. Stay back, Mira called out, her voice tight with fear. The wind nearly drowned out the reply, but a man's voice managed to break through, rough and desperate. Please, I'm not here to hurt you. My son is sick. We just need a place to stay for the night. A weaker, fragile whimper followed, a child's voice. Swallowing her panic, Mira cracked open the door just enough to see. A man stood in the blizzard, shaking violently, his hair and coat thick with snow. In his arms, a small boy, no more than 6, hung limp, his face flushed with fever and lips trembling from the cold. My name is Grayson, the man said, breath fogging as he spoke. This is my son, Noah. Please, just one night. He's getting worse. Myra's instincts screamed caution. She had seen danger before. People who pretended to be helpless only to take advantage the moment she let her guard down. She wasn't naive anymore. But Noah's tiny fingers slipped from his father's coat, dangling lifelessly. That broke the last of her hesitation. Fine, Mira muttered, jaw tight. Only tonight. She pulled the door open and stepped aside. Grayson staggered into the cabin, holding Noah close to his chest. Mira shut the door quickly, shutting out the storm's fury. Put him by the fire, she said, still keeping several steps away. Grayson obeyed without protest. He knelt beside the fireplace, settling Noah onto a blanket and checking his forehead with trembling hands. His gentleness, unexpected and unguarded, made Myra's grip on the poker loosen just slightly. I have soup and a dry towel. That's all, she said softly. Thanks, Grayson said softly. She reheated the pot of soup over the fire, the warm aroma filling the dim cabin. When she handed Grayson a bowl of soup, his eyes were tired and grateful. Hers held a caution she didn't want to reveal. Noah stirred weakly. Grayson crouched down and offered him a spoonful. It's warm, he said quietly. The boy swallowed, his small body relaxing just a little. Outside, the storm continued its violent rage. But inside the lonely cabin, 3 strangers shared firelight and warmth, bound together by a single night of necessity and survival. When dawn finally came, the storm had not abated, it had intensified. The world outside Mira Dawson's cabin was buried under a thick, unbroken blanket of snow. The snow was halfway up the door, and the narrow mountain path had disappeared under the snow. Grayson Hale stood by the window, his jaw clenched as he realized the truth. There's no way out today, he muttered. Mira came to him, her arms crossed. The road down the mountainside is gone. Not even the plow will get up here until the storm stops. Her voice was firm, but not hostile. You too will have to stay another night. Grayson nodded, accepting the reality. Thank you. Again. That's how it is, Mira replied, stepping away, keeping her usual wary distance. Although she hadn't asked, Grayson still helped her with a few things. While Mira prepared a small breakfast of soup and leftover bread, he had a keen eye for the woodshed in the backyard. The sound of an axe chopping frozen logs echoed in the cold morning air. When he brought new firewood into the house, Mira blinked in surprise, but said nothing. Then he fixed a squeaky hinge, found a small water leak, and tightened a loose pipe. He had only noticed these things by accident and had immediately fixed them with the few tools he had found. All done quietly, without expecting any praise. Mira watched from the corner of her eye, feeling uneasy at the sincerity of his help. The men she had met rarely did anything without expecting anything in return. But Grayson simply did the work, patient, focused, and grateful. Meanwhile, Noah spent most of the morning curled up under the covers. His sniffles were still there, and his forehead was slightly hot. Myra's instincts kicked in when she saw him rubbing his eyes, clearly uncomfortable. "Let me check," she whispered. She took Noah's temperature, made ginger tea in a chipped mug, and read him a story in a gentle voice she didn't know she still had. When Noah groaned in discomfort, Mira sat on the edge of the bed, gently rubbing his back until his breathing eased. From the doorway, Grayson watched, silent, unmoving. Something in his expression softened, as if Myra's gentleness had unraveled a thread he'd been holding on to. By evening, Noah felt well enough to sit by the fire. Mira laid out old paper and pencils, and the three of them began folding small boats and birds. Laughter, real laughter, filled the small house, drowning out the crackling of the burning logs. Noah drew a picture in clumsy, colorful strokes of Mira standing at the door, opening it for him and Grayson. When he was done, he proudly taped it to the wall. "This is our second home," he said. The words felt like a warm breeze blowing into Grayson's chest. And for the first time in a long time, he let himself believe that warmth would return to his life. 2 days after the storm finally broke, sunlight spilled weakly over Cedar Ridge, revealing the heavy mounds of snow that now blanketed the mountains. The air remained bitterly cold, but at least the sky had cleared. Mira Dawson glanced out the frosted window as she pulled on her work boots. She had a morning shift at the diner in town, one she couldn't afford to miss. Behind her, Grayson Hale and little Noah still slept near the fading warmth of the fireplace, bundled under blankets Mira had laid out the night before. The peaceful rise and fall of the child's breath made something warm twist inside her. She took a deep breath, forcing herself to stay composed. Before leaving, Mira added 3 thick logs to the fire, watching the flames catch and grow brighter. It wasn't necessary. By now Noah's fever had subsided, and they were strong enough to manage, but she did it anyway. The cabin felt strangely fuller with them there, the silence less heavy. "Just one more night," she whispered under her breath. That was the deal. But her steps lingered, slow and reluctant, as she finally headed out into the crisp morning. All day at the diner, Myra's mind drifted back to the cabin. She replayed the sound of Noah's laugh, the quiet gratitude in Grayson's eyes, the odd comfort of hearing another person breathe in the same room as her. She scolded herself for it. Attachment was not something she allowed anymore. When her shift ended, Mira hurried back up the mountain trail, boots crunching through the packed snow. A strange tightness squeezed her chest as she approached the cabin's door. The moment she stepped inside, the truth hit her. The cabin was empty. The blankets were folded neatly, the dishes washed and put away. Even the woodpile beside the fireplace had been res-tacked with perfect precision. Grayson and Noah were gone. Mira froze in the doorway, the cold air swirling around her ankles. Her throat tightened painfully as she spotted a small envelope placed gently on the table. She opened it with trembling fingers. "Thank you for the warmth. You helped more than you know. Grayson." Beside the letter lay a sleek, black card with no name. Heavy, smooth, unmistakably expensive. Her heart dropped. Myra's breath hitched as an ache she hadn't felt in years rose uninvited to her chest. The absence of their presence pressed harder than expected, and for the first time in a long time, tears spilled down her cheeks. She covered her mouth, letting the heartbreak wash over her in waves she couldn't control. Later that afternoon, she walked to the bank in town, just to understand. The moment the teller scanned the card, their posture straightened, tone shifting to startled respect. "This is a high-tier executive account, ma'am. Extremely confidential." Mira thanked them quietly, took the card back, and walked out with her jaw set. She didn't use it. She wouldn't. That night, she tucked the card and letter into a box beneath her bed. And then she returned to her quiet life. A life suddenly far more silent than it had been before. Winter tightened its grip on Cedar Ridge as the weeks passed, turning the mountain town quieter and harsher than usual. Mira Dawson tried to endure it the way she always had, alone, with grit and silence. But life was growing heavier by the day. First, the small library where she worked part-time shut its doors for good. Funding had been cut, and there simply weren't enough visitors left to justify keeping it open. Mira stood outside the locked entrance on the final day, staring at the permanently closed sign until the cold stung her eyes. The diner followed next. Business slowed during the harsh weather, and the owner apologized as he reduced everyone's hours. "I'm sorry, Mira. I'll call you if we need extra help. She nodded, polite and steady, but inside, a knot tightened. Within 2 weeks, her savings dropped to less than $20. The pantry thinned out to a few cans. The firewood pile shrank to a stack barely tall enough to last 2 nights. Every evening, she boiled water just to feel warm, pretending it was enough. But the silence inside the cabin, once comforting, now felt suffocating. She remembered those days when Grayson and his father were there. Something warm, something wistful. One night, a bitter wind blew through the mountains, and Mira found herself staring at the nearly empty wood basket. Fear, real, physical, settled in her stomach. If this keeps up, she whispered to the empty cabin, I won't make it through this winter. The next morning when she woke, she found an envelope tucked under her door. She picked it up. Thick paper. Embossed seal. She frowned, tearing it open. Invitation for interview. Hale Industries, Denver headquarters. You have been directly recommended for this position. Arrival time, 9 a.m., next Monday. Grayson H., Chief Executive Officer, Hale Industries. The world seemed to tilt. Her breath hitched. Her pulse raced as she reread the name again and again, as if the letters might vanish. Grayson Hale, the man who left her cabin quietly, the father who held his son with such gentle hands, the stranger she still thought of late at night, had come back to find her. Not only found her, but recommended her. Personally, Myra's fingers tightened around the letter until it trembled. A rush of emotions surged through her. Disbelief, confusion, anger, something dangerously close to hope. She stumbled back to her seat. The room felt suddenly too small, too loud with the sound of her own heartbeat. Why? She whispered. Grayson Hale was back in her life. Unexpected, unannounced. The skyscraper rose above Denver's skyline like a blade of steel, its glass windows catching the morning sun. Mira Dawson stood at the base of Hale Industries, fingers tightening around the strap of her worn handbag. She had never stepped into a building so polished, so impossibly tall. Yet here she was, because of him. Inside, the reception area glowed with warm light and modern elegance. The moment she gave her name, the staff straightened with a look of recognition. Ms. Dawson, welcome. You're expected, one of them said kindly before personally escorting her to the private elevator. Myra's stomach fluttered as the elevator rose smoothly toward floor 32, executive level. She tried to steady her breath, reminding herself she was only here for an interview. Nothing more. When the doors slid open, she stepped into a quiet hallway with floor-to-ceiling windows revealing the city spread out below. And standing there, hands in his pockets, posture composed, was Grayson Hale. This was not the exhausted stranger from the storm. This was the CEO of Hale Industries. Sharp suit, calm confidence, and a steadiness that filled the room. But when he saw her, that carefully held composure broke into a soft, unmistakably familiar relief. Mira, he said, voice low. I'm glad you came. She opened her mouth, unsure what to say, but Grayson gently motioned for her to follow him into his office. The space was large but warm, decorated with small touches that didn't match the sleek corporate environment. A blanket draped over a reading chair, a mug with kid-sized handprints on it, and on his desk, protected in a clear frame. Mira froze. It was Noah's drawing, the one he made in her cabin, her standing at the door, opening it for father and son. Grayson noticed her gaze. He picked up the frame and held it carefully, as though it were something fragile. He drew this the morning we left, he said softly. I've kept it with me every day since. Mira swallowed hard, emotions shifting inside her. Why show me this? Grayson set the picture down, turning to her fully. Because that night changed everything for me. You changed everything. He took a breath, steady but earnest. I realized how powerful kindness can be when it expects nothing in return. He moved toward his desk, picking up a folder. I'm launching a new philanthropic branch, the Open Door Initiative. Programs for families in crisis, rural support, emergency shelters. I need someone who understands the heart of it. Someone who lived it. Someone who opened a door simply because it was right. He met her eyes. I want you to run it. As executive director. Myra's breath caught. Me? Grayson. Why would you trust me with something like this? Because you're the only person I've met who embodies the meaning of unconditional kindness, he said quietly. You didn't save us because you knew who I was. You saved us because you could. Silence filled the room, soft, warm, steady. And for the first time in a long while, Mira believed someone genuinely meant the good they saw in her. She nodded slowly. "All right, Grayson, I'll do it." His expression brightened, not with triumph, but with gratitude. It felt like the beginning of something neither of them dared name. Working together came easier than either of them expected. At Hale Industries, Mira quickly became the heart of the Open Door Initiative, meeting families, shaping programs, organizing emergency drives. And Grayson, with all his corporate power and polished certainty, adjusted his pace to match hers. They coordinated schedules, exchanged updates in quiet hallways, and built the foundation of the project one small step at a time. Some mornings, Mira would find a steaming cup of ginger tea waiting on her desk, Grayson's quiet way of remembering the only drink that warmed her on difficult days. Other times, she would slip a neatly sorted stack of documents onto his table before he arrived, saving him hours of work. They never commented on these small gestures, but they noticed them deeply. Their conversations grew longer. Their silences grew more meaningful. But not once did either of them name what simmered quietly between them. The tension followed them all the way to the charity gala. The ballroom gleamed with gold lights and crystal chandeliers. Donors and journalists filled the hall, murmuring about the ambitious initiative that was already gaining national attention. Mira moved through the crowd with calm professionalism, though her chest tightened each time she caught a glimpse of Grayson speaking with someone across the room. He carried himself with confidence, but whenever his gaze drifted her way, his expression softened, subtle enough that only she could notice. The press conference began, and Mira stood beside him on stage while cameras flashed like lightning. This initiative, Grayson said into the microphone, was born from a simple act of compassion. From one person who chose kindness when she had every reason not to. Before Mira could process the words, a reporter cut in sharply. "Ms. Dawson, do you think your sudden rise in the company has anything to do with a personal relationship with Mr. Hale?" The room fell unnaturally still. Mira froze. Heat flooded her face, and for the first time in months, her voice stumbled inside her chest. She opened her mouth, but no words came. Then footsteps. Grayson stepped forward, placing himself directly between her and the cluster of microphones. His hand reached back without hesitation and closed around hers. Myra's breath caught, her heart slamming against her ribs. He held her hand firmly, confidently, publicly. His voice, when he spoke, was steady and unapologetic. "If there is any favor, any advantage, any accomplishment you see here today," he said, "it's because of her. Mira Dawson saved my son's life. She saved mine. We are standing here because she opened her door that night." Gasps and murmurs rippled through the hall. Grayson didn't let go of her hand, not even when every camera in the room clicked at once, capturing the moment like a confession neither of them could escape. Mira stood beside him, fingers wrapped in his, realizing that whatever existed between them had already left the realm of unspoken emotions. It was real now, undeniable, no longer something either of them could hide behind work. A full year had passed since the gala, 12 quiet, steady months in which the Open Door Initiative flourished. Mira Dawson found her footing in a life she never expected, and Noah grew into a happier, brighter version of himself. But there was one place Grayson Hale hadn't taken Mira back to. Not until now. The SUV stopped at the edge of the familiar clearing as light snow drifted gently from the sky. Mira stepped out, breath catching when she saw it. The cabin. Her cabin. Except it wasn't the weather-beaten home she once fought to survive in. The wood had been refinished, the roof reinforced, the windows replaced with warm glass that glowed from the inside. Grayson walked beside her in silence, Noah skipping ahead. When Mira pushed open the door, the warmth inside wrapped around her instantly. Her eyes fell on the wall above the fireplace. Noah's drawing, the one from that night, framed in oak and hanging like a treasured painting. Mira touched the frame lightly, her fingertips trembling. "You kept it here?" she whispered. Grayson nodded, removing his gloves. "It belongs where everything started." The afternoon faded into evening as they cooked together in the small kitchen, Mira chopping vegetables, Grayson stirring the stew, Noah humming as he arranged the bowls. It felt like a memory they had all lived before, softened and made new. By the time darkness settled and snow began falling in gentle flakes, Mira stepped out onto the porch. watching the forest shift beneath the pale moonlight. She didn't hear Grayson come up behind her until he spoke. "Mira." She turned and froze. He was kneeling in the snow, right where she had opened the door for him 1 year ago. In his hand was a silver ring, simple but elegant, the metal catching the moon's reflection. Mira held her breath when she saw the inscription inside. "Thank you for opening the door." Grayson's voice was low, rough with emotion. "That night, you changed everything for me. For Noah. You opened a door that gave us safety, warmth, and a future neither of us believed we deserved." Snowflakes caught in his hair as he looked up at her, eyes steady, hopeful. "Mira Dawson, will you let me spend the rest of my life earning the kindness you gave us that night?" Her vision blurred instantly. Tears spilled down her cheeks, quiet, overwhelming, unstoppable. She covered her mouth with one shaking hand, then nodded, barely able to speak. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, Grayson." Noah ran out into the snow a heartbeat later, stopping in front of them with wide eyes. "Mom," he said softly, the word falling from his lips with complete certainty. "You make Dad smile like he did on the first night." Mira dropped to her knees, pulling Noah into her arms just as Grayson wrapped his arms around them both. The three held each other in the snowfall, warmth radiating from the center of their embrace. Above them, the cabin windows glowed. Behind them, the old wooden door Mira had opened one fateful night now stood wide in the falling snow. A door that, from this moment on, would never close again.